Alright guys, so I want to talk about this clip that is going viral of a debate between Ben Shapiro and this self-admitted woke college student at the University of Iowa that happened, I believe it happened like last night. Okay, and during this debate or this exchange, the woke college student is going to accuse Ben Shapiro of being woke. Okay, and let's just say it doesn't end well for this woke college student. Take a look.
Why is this microphone so low? That's weird as hell. Hey, so my name's Ben. I'm also a Jew. I hate public speaking.
Well, it's the two of us against the world here in Iowa. So.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You should grow out your hair. I mean, Jewish people have beautiful hair, man. You should show it off. No, but I'm not here to talk about something that's very funny. I kind of have I don't know much about you, so I have a series of back and forth questions, if that's okay, just before I ask my question. So do you come from Holocaust survivors, or are you a Jewish family that didn't?
So my great-great-grandparents arrived here. A lot of our extended family was killed in the Holocaust, but our immediate
your
family.
Your great-great-grandparents, but not your grandparents.
Right.
Oh, do you have friends whose grandparents were Holocaust survivors or anything like that?
Of course, many of them. Yeah, I've helped write memoirs of Holocaust survivors.
Yeah. Their families are kind of messed up, right? My family is very messed up.
I mean, if you go through a trauma like the Holocaust, I would imagine
they teach that trauma between generations. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, trauma very often in a lot of circumstances is passed down. I mean, I know some kids of Holocaust survivors who turned out fantastic and some who didn't. I mean, that's
yeah. Okay, so you are officially woke. That is what wokeness is about. It's like, people's grandparents or their great-grandparents were slaves.
Well, it's okay. No, it's okay. Guys,
Fuck you! I'm talking.
Guys, I actually want to hear. I want to hear.
No,
it's okay. I want to hear. Let's at least hear the argument. Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Go.
What? He wants to hear me.
I do want to hear it. It's fine. Let him go. Let's hear it.
Come on.
So explain how that's woke.
So I mean, the whole thing is like, let's see. So during Silent Calvin Coolidge's administration, do you know about the Great Mississippi Flood back in the 1930s?
I understand that American history is filled with racial evil.
Yeah. And that causes some intergenerational trauma, which affects people's ability to be, effective, and things like that.
Fine. So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
So if the idea is that history has consequences, of course that's true. That's not wokeness.
Yeah.
That is not wokeness. What wokeness suggests is that fundamental institutions in American society
are so... No, it doesn't.
Yes, it 100% does.
I ran Elizabeth Warren's campaign. I helped organize her volunteers around here. I am a representative of wokeness.
Okay, well,
and that's just, this is all it is.
Well, I mean,
when I went to go get my first tattoo, the guy had lightning bolts and 88s tattooed on his neck. And as a Jewish person, that's really messed up. It's basically a threat.
There are racist people who exist. The argument that you're making, and I'm going to close with this because this is going in weird directions, and I don't really want to.
No, it's not
I
going in a
don't
weird
really
direction.
want to. Just hold up a second. I let you get out your arguments, and now it's time for me to respond because I let you say the full argument.
Okay, I'll let you respond, but
no, not but. Now's my turn.
You are not characterizing what I'm saying accurately.
Now it's my turn. Your definition is inaccurate. The reason your definition is inaccurate is because any sentient human being would acknowledge that history has consequences.
Right.
But if the idea is, but that's not what wokeism is. Wokeism is a different thing. Wokeism suggests that all inequalities of today are attributable to not only historic injustices, but also continuing injustices in the now. And that all disparity is attributable to discrimination.
Like that, but a conservative.
Not just
a conservative is the only person. I want to know why. Why is it that conservatives are the only people who define it like that? Why are conservatives the only people?
Okay, so we're gonna have to stop here because this is going nowhere. But
what's up?
I'm gonna have to stop with this with you because this is going nowhere. All I'm going to say is this. To sum up,
I just am trying to understand your perspective. Just one more second.
On a fundamental level, you're shifting definitions to avoid the consequences of your own argument. And if the idea is,
And
final
free
point.
speech.
And final
This is
point.
being censored.
And final point. If
I
you are
thought
going
you
to
were a free
hold on,
speech
if you are
warrior.
also, just final point to sum up there. Final point to sum.
I can follow that.
Yeah,
but,
I just want to make, honestly,
Go ahead.
I want to make one final point to sum up there. If the idea is that traumas of the past invariably bleed down into the present, that does not explain why certain groups that have been historically not only marginalized but slaughtered in mass genocide are some of the most successful groups in our society. So if the idea is, that past trauma always equals current inequality, or that my actions in, say, robbing a convenience store are attributable to bad actions that happened in Alabama in 1930, the answer to that is no. Don't rob the convenience store. The only way they are going to be able to break the chain of history is to make good decisions. What people on the left don't like to talk about is actual solutions. What they like to do is bitch about problems that existed 60 years ago and blame those for failures to solve them now.
Yeah, so the left is circulating this clip as if it's some type of win for the future Starbucks employee that used to work for Elizabeth Warren. Because they're saying that, well, Ben Shapiro was against free speech because the guy covered up the mic, okay, when the guy continued to try to talk over Ben Shapiro. And I'm like, no. That's not being anti-free speech because they're having a conversation, they're having a debate. And this guy stated what he had to say. Ben Shapiro let him state what he had to say. And when it was Ben Shapiro's turn to talk, the guy just kept talking over Ben Shapiro and not letting Ben Shapiro make his argument. And Ben Shapiro was very, very, very patient with this guy to try to say, hey, you know what? Just let me talk. Like, let me, get out a sentence. Let me get something out. And the dude just wouldn't do it. So at some point, right, you got to cut off the dude's mic. Okay, you have to stop that person from talking over the other person because at that point he's infringing on Ben Shapiro's free speech, right? When you're in a conversation or a debate and you are simply not letting the other person talk, cutting off that person's mic at that point or keeping them from being heard is appropriate. That's not shutting down his free speech. That is actually giving an opportunity for everybody to speak freely, to be heard, right? So for whatever reason, the left thinks this is a gotcha moment, right? You free speech warriors aren't actually for free speech because you didn't let this college student continue to talk over Ben Shapiro, right? Now, to the actual crux of what has been talked about here, which is this concept of wokeness. I mean, they're basically arguing semantics, okay? What does wokeness actually mean? And this guy uses the dictionary definition of wokeness, which basically just means the state of being aware, especially of social problems like racism and inequality. Okay, so during this debate here, this guy says, well, you're aware of the Holocaust. And not only are you aware of the Holocaust, you're aware of the long-term effects that the Holocaust has had on survivors and their family members, right? So therefore, you must be woke because you're aware of that according to the textbook definition of wokeness. But see, what this college student is missing here is that just because Cambridge University, right, or Merriam-Webster defines wokeness as just being aware of racism or inequality or whatever, that doesn't actually mean that that's what the definition of the word is and how people, particularly on the right, use the word, okay? Because anybody can be aware of, racial injustices or inequality or whatever, and that doesn't necessarily make you woke, at least by my definition, right? It doesn't make you woke. Okay, now I think Ben Shapiro's definition of wokeness is when you're attributing all of society's problems to the wrongdoings of the past, right? You're basically saying that, well, I have a bad life and that bad things are happening to me because of the injustices that have happened in the past. Okay, I think that's what Ben Shapiro is trying to get at here. And that's why he went on at the end to say, hey, you got a bunch of people that, instead of making good choices today in order to try to rectify and to put themselves in a better place, despite what happened in the past, they just want to complain about it. Okay, and I think that is kind of what his whole definition of wokeness is. Now, me personally, I take it a step further. Okay, and the reason why I take it a step further is because of conversations like this. I define wokeness as not only being aware of, racism, inequality, or whatever, because there's a whole lot of people that are aware of that. That doesn't necessarily make you woke. I think wokeness encompasses action, right? When you are advocating for far left radical social change. That, in my opinion, is wokeness, okay? And that, in my opinion, is dangerous, okay? When you start to take to the streets to protest the killings of unarmed black men, and you are destroying neighborhoods, destroying cities because of the injustices of the past, okay, and because the white man is evil and this, that, and the other, let's defund the police, let's abolish everything, let's tear down the judicial system, let's do all that, let's just get rid of everything. Yeah, that's wokeness in my opinion. When you're advocating for policies and legislation to try to rectify the past, okay, in the name of social justice, in a way that is radical, again, like defunding the police, that is wokeness in my opinion. Okay, when you're trying to silence speech because you feel like, oh, white men shouldn't speak because white men historically have had a greater voice, they've been heard more than everybody else. Yeah, that is wokeness in my opinion, right? Wokeness encompasses action. That is the way I define it. Okay, that's the way I define it. I'm not going along with what the dictionary says. I'm going along with what I believe and what I define it as. Okay, so I think that's the difference here in this argument, in this debate. Is that this person is trying to play gotcha and say, well, the textbook definition of wokeness is just being aware, right? You're aware of the Holocaust, right? Therefore, you're woke, right? Therefore, you're woke. And Ben Shapiro, he has a different definition of wokeness, but that college student would have understood that if he actually let Ben Shapiro talk. But the reason why he didn't want Ben Shapiro to talk, because he knows that, okay, well, Ben Shapiro is defining wokeness in a different way than the dictionary defines wokeness. And when you're defining it differently, then that's a whole different conversation. Now you're getting a conversation about what does wokeness actually mean, okay? Rather than whether or not Ben Shapiro is actually woke, because you have to both agree on what the definition actually is, right? So, yeah, with that being said, this was not the W that the left thinks that it is. It was not a W at all. Again, it just shows you what the left is about. It's about being loud, talking over people, not letting them speak, and then try to play victim when the tables are turned on them, right? Kind of like what happened with Twitter, right? How all the leftists are now so upset because the tables have been turned on them when it comes to Twitter, right? This college student got so upset when his mic was cut off after not letting Ben Shapiro speak. It's funny how that works. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.